Hey everybody, welcome and a big aloha to you. I'm Natalie and this is Life After a Cult. This is the channel where we expose cult nonsense. We laugh at the absurdity and hopefully unbrainwash ourselves in the process. I feel like even if you were not ever in a cult, there's a level of brainwashing that occurs just in life at different times. So I feel like this channel's for everybody. Welcome. Thank you, moderators, for helping out today. Hello to all the members and everybody in the chat. Good to see you. And welcome. If you're on the replay, please do jump in and join the conversation. We're going to talk about some very interesting things today. Tom DeVak, former Sea Org member and confidant of David Miscavige, dropped a blog article last night or yesterday or in the last couple of days. But last night, and yesterday, there were many reactions to this from Aaron Smith-Levin. Marilyn at Coffee Cults and Crafts did a video, which then ended up becoming much more about this story and reactions from Aaron Smith-Levin, Jenna Miscavige, Liz Gale. If you did not catch that video, I'm going to link it down below. You need to go watch it because there were great points and it was absolutely hilarious at times. I'll be honest, it really was hilarious. There were lots of thoughts and there were lots of feels, but I got something to tell you. I actually have a different take on it, and we're going to get to that. So let's see. First, though, I wanted to give you guys, in case you don't know, and you are in the Los Angeles area, Ada LA did a post here where there's going to be she got a First Amendment protest permit. We've been approved to close both sidewalks on LRH Way to have a protest on Father's Day, June 15th, 11:30 a.m. until 10. We're allowed a microphone, speakers, no bullhorns, but this will be a day for everyone to come together and let it be known that we demand no more kids in Scientology, no more family separation, no more blatant disregard for the ADA community by way of illegal planters, etc. She also shares a GoFundMe, an address, supply help that, supplies that would come in handy. Check that out. I'm going to link it down below after this video here. Hey, everybody coming in. Good to see you. Oh, look at that. Look at me trying to pull Nancy up on the screen. Girl, good thing your video was off. I did that once to her early on. Like, I think it was within the first few months of me being on YouTube and live streaming. I accidentally pulled Nancy up onto the screen for a hot second. You should have seen her face. It still exists. It was actually during a video that I did with my Tony. Hey, everybody coming in. Thank you so much for being here. Now, the first thing I want to do is actually take a look at this blog post that triggered some emotions and feelings. And I think this is really a great topic to talk about. If you guys have questions or comments, Nancy's starring in the back there, but try to make it, put like a Q or something in front of the question there. Hey, Jen Cass, Arkansas Flamingo, and Marcy, all of you, thank you so much for being here. Did I catch all the mods there? Marcy. Okay, so let's talk about this. First, let's talk about the blog article in question that caused a lot of conversation, emotion, and pushback. Let's take a look at what it is. Tom DeVocht, again, former Sea Org member, David Miscavige bestie for a little bit, it seemed. He has got a Substack. You can subscribe. I am subscribed to his Substack. You can see that here. So he wrote this blog article called Not Anti-Scientology, Just Anti-Miscavige, a Call to Action. So we're going to take a look at some of this. I'm going to show you the reactions of others, and then I'm going to tell you what I actually think about it. So let's just take a look at this here. To all my friends, I started writing again, not out of ambition, but from a place of raw truth and lived experience, never sure how it would land. To hear from people who know the game, know the names, and know what's at stake means more than I can say. So some of you might not know, Tom DeVak was around many years ago. He was exposing a lot of the abuses that happen at the international base, all kinds of things. And now he has this Substack. I think he was vocal and then kind of was just living his life and raising his child for maybe almost a decade. And then now he came back on Substack and has been spilling the tea, because this is a man who knows where the bodies are buried. I mean, he worked right with David Miscavige. We've talked about some of his articles before. After nearly a decade away from the subject entirely, I started telling my story, but it was a form of healing. I didn't plan it. I didn't expect what came next, but a tidal wave of emotion hit me. I thought it was all gone. Maybe restimulation is real after all. And many of you know restimulation is Scientology, is basically being triggered. L. Ron Hubbard says that something that triggers your case, your body thetans, or your reactive mind is restimulation. If you're getting upset about something, you're stimulated. You're not upset. You're restimulated. I found that very restimulating. That's like Scientology talk for like, you need to knock it off. Like, you are trigger me. I am triggered. I am triggered. That's restimulation in Scientology. Let's see. Since I started writing, I've spoken to fence sitters, under the radar members, active Scientologists, anti Scientologists, and independents. I've seen the blogs, the YouTube channels, the Substacks. I've also seen the divides and fights from where I sit. I can assure you many of those fractures were strategically orchestrated by one person, David Miscavige. And you all know that. Scientology loves to take pokes and try and they do, stir up conflict and contribute to the spreading of rumors. There are regular internet trolls, and then there are Scientology Office of Special Affairs trolls, which, by the way, we should wake y'all up. Where's David Miscavige, by the way? He got an early start on June, which is Pride Month, with his little outfit here, which a fabulous subscriber sent in. David Miscavige, wake up your stuff. Office of Special Affairs. For one, admire this outfit. Look at this. Love is love. How beautiful is that? We're allowing the pop collar today. You know, normally I don't like it, but whatever. We're going with it today. Today. So, anyways, Office of Special Affairs. Pay close attention here. Let's see. So he's talking about it being orchestrated by David Miscavige, and you guys have seen this play out, right? Trolls, and then there's Scientology trolls. Because and that just added to the charge building up inside me. Now, in Scientology, charge is like that mental mass or energy. And in Scientology, it's believed that that is what an e-meter registers, is that mental mass and energy, that charge. You know, you ever get into a fight with somebody and you're like, "Ugh," like you can feel beefed up. In Scientology, they call that like, I'm accumulating charge. I want to make sure you know that, so you kind of get what follows. So he says, and that just added to the charge building up inside me. So I decided to stop feeling the charge and start leading one. Because my nightmare didn't begin when I joined Scientology. It began when David Miscavige inserted himself and claimed to own it. I worked directly for him with his inner circle, with Shelley. I got close to see how his mind works. I know what drives him. I know what drives him crazy. And I know what he fears and why he fears it. And fortunately, Tom DeVocht has been sharing this with us. He is the man that shared with us that David Miscavige is terrified of body thetans, which is why I keep a collection of them here to scare him. Boo, boo. These, of course, are the body thetans that Feral Cheryl on the Loose makes. I am the proud owner of a few of these. And again, I keep them nearby to scare off David Miscavige. Okay, so we know that he's terrified of body thetans. We also know, per Tom DeVak, that he's kind of oddly afraid of children and the body thetans of children. Interestingly, Alvin Hubbard never, that I'm aware of, made any differentiation between the body thetans on children and those on adults, because there are no children, right? In Scientology, there are big beings in little bodies. So I don't quite know. I still don't totally understand how David Miscavige became so afraid of body thetans, and then especially the body thetans of children. Never really made sense to me, but whatever. A lot doesn't. We are talking about Scientology after all. If you try to make it make sense, it will hurt your head. There's only so much. So there's a lot of things. And if you're new to my channel, thank you for being here. And those of you who have been here know that to be a Scientologist, you have to go through a lot of mental gymnastics. And it's those mental gymnastics that actually rewire your brain in ways that are not productive or good for you. It's definitely not good for us. And many of us spend years doing different, whether it's therapy, whatever that healing process is, to rewire our brains and get rid of that Scientology thinking there. So Tom DeVak goes on to say that, and I know this, no matter what side of the fence you sit on, deep down, we all know this. We were Scientology. Whether we believed in all of it or just some of it, what made it work, what made it home was us. And I, for one, am sick of having to explain why I stuck with it for so long. It was a cult. I got caught up in lies. Those answers might satisfy others, but they're not the whole story. The truth is, I loved the people I was in it with. It was new, it was fun, and most of us at our core, and most of us were at our core ethical and well-intentioned. And I can speak to that too. I've shared with you guys that many Scientologists are very well-intentioned individuals. Their desire to help people has been hijacked by Scientology through propaganda and mind control. Scientology convinced them that they're actually doing good out in the world, that Scientology is actually helping people. So these people that want to make change in the world and they're jazzed up about it think, oh, the best way I can do that is becoming a staff member or sign a billion-year contract and join the Sea Org and forfeit my life, my ability to have children, and then live the lifestyle of a Sea Org member, which is not a happy life, especially today. Most of us were at our core ethical and well-intentioned. That's the part nobody talks about. And that's the part that mattered. But that Scientology is gone because David Miscavige turned it into a weapon. He turned suppressive person declares into candy. He enforced forced abortions, murders by rewriting policy for his own benefit. He ripped families apart with disconnection, not to protect anyone, but to protect himself. And the list goes on. Now he hides behind the armor of religious recognition. But I remind you, David Miscavige is not a religion. He doesn't own you. He doesn't own me. And he sure as hell doesn't own Scientology. He's an individual who can and should be accountable. I'm not here to attack Scientology, but I will go after the man who has assaulted our beliefs, our families, and our better judgment. David Miscavige is the weak underbelly, alone and exposed. He's vulnerable, and believe me, he knows it better than anyone. He welcomes attacks on Scientology. He uses them to raise money, to deflect scrutiny, to disappear behind the noise. So I'm not going to add to that noise. I'm going to document not just stories, not just outrage, evidence of fraud, evidence of abuse, evidence that his Scientology is no more than a front for real estate acquisition and personal gain. Active Scientologists and longtime contributors who've been manipulated into donating under the guise of KSW, which you guys know is Keeping Scientology Working. KSW, Keeping Scientology Working, that is one of the most important policy letters in Scientology written by L. Ron Hubbard. So important that they put it at the start of every major course in Scientology. It's the ultimate. It's got a lot of that. Keeping Scientology Working is how Scientology keeps the blinders on Scientologists, because you're not supposed to look over here. You're not supposed to allow incorrect technology. You're supposed to hammer it out of existence. Active Scientologists and longtime contributors who've been manipulated into donating under the guise of KSW, Keeping Scientology Working, deserve somewhere else to go, a safe haven, one that isn't anti-Scientology, but anti-Miscavige. I respect all religions. They all have their faults. They all have their truths. And we all have the right to believe in whatever we choose. So I'm inviting everyone, active Scientologists, former members, fence sitters, critics, let's stop yelling at the fortress. Let's go through the back door. We have first-hand accounts. We have financial records. We have eyewitness testimony. We have enough to hang the man legally and publicly. And don't be fooled by the spin. Quote, the statute of limitations has passed, close quote, or it's too late. That's what Miscavige wants you to believe. We've been fighting the wrong target, and we've been approaching it as individuals. He can buy off and outlast any of us alone, but united, there is no fight. We just end it by taking away the power he was never meant to have. David Miscavige has no real power, only what we've allowed him to keep. It's time to take it back. It's time to stop making noise. It's time to be effective. It's time to reclaim what rightfully belongs to all of us and put the hijacker behind bars. There's more coming. There's a coordinated strategic campaign, and you should be part of it if you agree with this one thing, that Miscavige himself is the correct target. We were Scientology. We are its future. Together, we can end his influence over any part of it, over us, over our families. This is a safe space, not anti-Scientology, just anti-Miscavige. What you do with Scientology when he's gone is up to you. But under our watch, it will never again be used as a weapon. That doesn't end with storytelling. It ends with justice. Thank you again to everyone who's reached out, commented, or encouraged. Let's not just speak out. Let's finish it. More soon, Devo. And then he goes on to talk about Debbie Cook, which you can read that as well. Well, if you're subscribed to his Substack, and I think he shares the email that was from Debbie Cook. I do believe. So let's I want to show you a couple reactions, and then we're going to get to what my thoughts are on this, which may or may not surprise you. Let's take a look here. I got a clip here. Let's go to Growing Up in Scientology. Aaron did a real good video called Is This Guy Like the Jesus of Scientology? Is this man Scientology Jesus? So let's take a look at a clip.
People have been leaving Scientology for generations. Active Scientologists who love L. Ron Hubbard and love the tech, but don't like David Miscavige, have been becoming independent Scientologists for literally generations. So this sounds like, and I'm saying sounds like because I can't insist that I know what's in Tom's head or what he means by his words. I can only respond to how I interpret them. It sounds like he wants to create a new independent Scientology. And that is also what the inspiration for the video is. This.
And I get what Aaron's saying there, and I would agree with that part of it. By reading what I read, it's having like, we can take back Scientology. Scientology can be different without David Miscavige. Personally, I don't agree with that. I think my personal opinion, based on my experience, is Scientology is rotten to the core. That the first word out of L. Ron Hubbard's mouth was a scam. Therefore, everything that came after, and for me, has no workability. There were things in Scientology that were workable, that actually did help people. But those are things that are not unique to Scientology. They are universal truths that could be found in other places. So also at the same time, there are so many different levels of Scientology. When you look at it this way, you have public Scientologists, but within public Scientologists, you have everyday Scientologists. And then you have celebrity Scientologists, which could be people with a lot of money who are wealthy, or celebrities who are in movies or musicians and whatnot. You have staff members who sign 2.5 or 5-year contracts. They have a different experience than public Scientologists do. Public Scientologists who are celebrities have a different experience in Scientology than everyday Scientologists do. Then you have the Sea Organization, where, in my opinion, the vast majority of the worst of the abuses in Scientology have and do occur. They occur everywhere else, but they become even more intense and twisted in the Sea Organization due to the level of control over the members, over Sea Organization members. They are working 7 days a week. They rarely get time off. It's very frowned upon if you ask for time off. You get, if you're lucky, $47 a week. You're working under rules that don't make any sense a lot of the time. Everything is a crisis. Everything has to be handled right now, where the world is going to end. We see this with so many of us who come out of the Sea Organization and or Scientology, where we kind of get stuck in fight or flight. And that is part of that repair and healing and that rewiring of our brains to get out of that fight or flight and recognize that we are no longer in that situation anymore. So the solutions and the way we had to be then does not apply today, because we're not in that situation. That's been kind of my healing journey of separating that out, of being able to look and recognize who I once was, or at least who I thought I was, because of my Scientology indoctrination, and compare that to today, where honestly, I'm still finding out who I am. And I really think that this idea that you leave a cult like Scientology and well, you left and everything's fine. I don't think anybody really thinks that. I mean, I'm sure there's somebody out there who does. There's a lot of work to be done after that. Scientology is, many cult experts have labeled it the most difficult cult to recover from. Rick Allen Ross, who's done tons of interventions with members in cults, has said that it takes, I think he said 3 to 4 times longer to deprogram and have an intervention for a Scientologist than somebody who is in a different cult. So different levels in Scientology, different experiences. Not everyone in Scientology has the same experience. That's like, think about where you went to high school. Your experience in high school could be different from someone else's experience at the same high school at the same time. So everyone has a different experience, and we go through life seeing the world more as we are rather than as it is. And how we see the world, in my opinion, is determined by our experiences that then give us that worldview. We make decisions about people on how we see things. We make decisions about what we give meaning to, because we as humans, we give meaning to a lot of things that really don't have, we're the ones, we give it the meaning. So each person in Scientology can have a really different experience. We also have many shared experiences in Scientology, especially when you put Sea Org members together, staff members together, public Scientologists. I unfortunately experienced all of those. I was a staff member in Hawaii for Scientology. I was a Sea Organization member, and I was a public Scientologist doing Scientology's Bridge to Total Freedom. And I got up through operating Thetan level 4. So I got to, audit my alien cooties and body thetans. Now, let's take a look. I'm going to show you, I think this is another clip from Aaron here. Let's take a look at something else that he said, his take on this.
It's time to take it back.
Oh, and some of these clips, fair warning, have some spicy words in them. So just fair warning, if you have kids in the car or anything like that. At some point in these clips, I know there's some spicy words.
It's time to stop making noise. It's time to be effective. It's possible that I'm misunderstanding and misinterpreting and strawmanning the words that are written in this blog post, but I'm doing it to the best of my ability. I'm reading them to the best of my ability. I'm interpreting it to the best of my ability to understand English. I'm being as fair and charitable as I think I can be. Do you guys read this differently than I do? Please let me know in the live chat or the comments down below. There's more coming. This is a coordinated strategy to be in. And that's not to say, the people who are currently involved in litigation, man, that's brave as fuck. And you want to know what? That's why I support them unreservedly.
Now, my take on Aaron's video, and I'm going to link it down below, is I get where he's coming from. I believe that I didn't read it the same way, though. My take on it is I don't think it was Tom DeVoch's intention, and I can be totally wrong about this. We have to actually ask Tom DeVocht to say that he is the first one, or let's even talk about when he said about leading the charge, right? I went from I'm not going to, and that just added to the charge building up inside me. So I decided to stop feeling the charge and start leading one. I don't hear this and think, oh, Tom DeVak thinks that, he has to pick up the baton and lead a charge because nobody else is doing it. What I read, I did not take as invalidating anything else that's already happening, because I think both things can be true. Because the point I was trying to make earlier, we each have had a different experience in Scientology. My personal view, I know what I think about it. I think Scientology is poisonous, toxic crap. That is my opinion. If people want to still practice Scientology, I don't understand it. But I'm also not in control of that or what they do. I don't get it one bit. It wouldn't be my cup of tea. But if they want to practice Scientology, I don't understand how you can practice Scientology and not fall back into the abusive practices. Disconnection is part of what L. Ron Hubbard said. Big beings in little bodies, not letting children be children. That's L. Ron Hubbard. These things are not just David Miscavige. Now, having said that, when Tom DeVok talks about targeting David Miscavige, I think that's great. I think from his point of view, from his experience where he is at, my takeaway from his article is this is what he is choosing to do. I'm going to lead a charge and go about it this way. Great. That doesn't mean that there aren't other charges happening, that there isn't a lot of other work being done. I don't believe that him saying that invalidates any of the other work. I think that's personalizing it versus actually hearing them out and going, okay. Now, though I don't agree, and I agree with Aaron on this about that, Scientology should exist after David Miscavige, or that it even can. If he wants to do that, right? That's like the way he's going about it. So hopefully I'm making sense here. I've got to check in with the chat. But do you get what I'm saying? We can have different experiences in Scientology, which means our healing is going to be different. Some people will go about it differently. Some people want to protest Scientology and go out. Some don't want to, or it's also incredibly difficult. The only times I've gotten nightmares in recent years about Scientology has been when I go stand in front of a Scientology building. And I feel perfectly fine when I'm there. When I'm there, I feel perfectly comfortable. It's kind of cathartic, but it does stir things up. That's the only time lately that I've actually had those nightmares about it. So I am not one who is looking to resurrect Scientology in any form whatsoever, because I believe, based on my experience, that it is poison. So so I think, so you get what I'm saying? I agree with some things, but not with others. Now, Marilyn Honig at Coffee Cults and Crafts did a video, and Aaron jumped on, and then Jenna Miscavige jumped on, and Liz Gale jumped on. And it's the most amazing video. You have got to see it. It's hilarious, but at the same time, it brings up really good point. These emotions are valid. And what that tells me, in fact, let's just take a look at a little bit of that. And then I'm going to tell you a little bit more about what I think about this.
That, I don't know. And then I see something like Tom's post. And then it reminds me clear as effing day. And I say, wait a minute. I'm actually, I'm weird and I'm this and that, but I'm not insane. And what's actually insane to me, you guys can judge for what's insane to yourself, is to say something like, hey, we're not going to fight the Scientology anymore. We're going to fight this one guy. That's bullshit. He's a coward.
Do you think okay. So
now Liz shared a story about her cousin who was sent to pigs birthing by Tom DeVak, making the point that, Tom DeVak is not a perfect individual. And I don't believe that Tom DeVak claims to be. But that's valid too. Liz Gale's feelings and emotions in regard to just, hey, let's take Scientology back from David Miscavige. I 100% how that can be triggering, especially when you've had people that you care about be on the receiving end of some of that abuse within Scientology. So I get that. I really do get that.
You're on one opposite, you're just yeah, he's a coward or what, which I get why you're saying that. Now, Aaron's just kind of he's a nice guy, didn't mean it, everything.
You can be a nice guy and a coward. I mean, and I'm not calling him a coward because
Sorry, Tom, but I think you're a coward.
I mean, he's got his own reasons for saying this, and I know he didn't mean it maliciously, but honestly, I was like, I'm just going to do a video responding to this, and we can deal with the aftermath in a conversation afterwards.
Bodies later.
I don't know Tom well enough to be like, Tom, I want to have a conversation with you about your blog post. I'm like, no, he put it out into the world. I'll put my video out into the world.
Yeah.
We can hash it out afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I would love the opportunity to hash out what the good old days of Scientology were. That'd be great. I'd love to hear about that. Is that the good old days of the Snow White operation, or was that Operation Freak Out? Like, what are the good old days?
You know, a very key point in this as well, and I think it was Aaron touched on it, and I think that Liz did as well. And I appreciate Liz had fun with this. You know, she was deep into the Chardonnay, but those are valid feelings, and that is something that I do appreciate about Liz Gale. Sometimes it comes out right in a way that's kind of like a fire hose, but it's real, and she's real about that, and then she processes that and, you know, gives people something to think about, whether you agree with it or you disagree with it. And I think that is the beauty of content creation and YouTube and having different channels like this, is we don't agree on everything. Who does, right? Even with the person, the love of your life, you probably don't agree on everything, but you don't have to. But what's great is being able to have the conversations about it and talk about it and talk it out and get somebody's different take and feeling. And this organically came together on Marilyn's channel last night. And it was, like I said, a lot of it was hilarious. But I can completely see how it's triggering to, when the blog article, it read in part of, hey, it wasn't all bad, how that can be triggering, but it's also true. The relationships that many people formed within Scientology or the Sea organization, we were not everybody. Again, people had different experiences, because this is the experience of one person doesn't mean it's the experience of somebody else's. So when one person shares their experience and they say that it was XYZ and somebody else goes, well, my experience was ABC, it doesn't mean that one is wrong. It means they had a different experience. So their healing and how they decide to expose Scientology or expose cults or battle it is going to be different. And it can be. And that's something I try to stress over and over again. Whether you're watching and liking videos, that is a form of pushback and protest on cults and Scientology, in my opinion. If you're calling into city councils and meetings to raise the red flag about Scientology, that is doing something. If you're out there live streaming and protesting, creating content that's fun, content that's more serious and documentary style, whatever it is, it's all working towards exposing Scientology and thereby cults. So if one person, Tom DeVak, now decides that he wants to go in this direction, I did not take that as you're all doing it wrong. We should only be doing it this way. We should all stop fighting Scientology and target David Miscavige. I read it, and what I hear is he is going, and it sounds like with some other people, to go after David Miscavige, even through legal means. And he says he has the receipts to do this. Do it. Bring it on. I think that's fantastic. But I also don't take that as, well, Natalie, that means you should stop talking about Scientology or targeting Scientology or L. Ron Hubbard. No, he may choose to do that. There are people in this community that still want to practice Scientology, or maybe their experience wasn't as severe, so they don't have that same visceral reaction to it. And that's okay. So I think that's kind of what I want to bring to the table, is let's remember that we each have different experiences in Scientology. And because we speak of one, because I say that I really like butter pecan ice cream, I love it, does not mean I hate coffee ice cream. I love that too. It doesn't mean I'm only ever going to eat butter pecan ice cream. I like variety. I'm going to try the other ice creams. I think it's the same thing. It's difficult because it's so personal for many of us, and for many who are on the receiving end or watch their family members, like Liz Gale sharing that horrible story of her cousin being put in pig's birthing, which is this real disgusting, you can be in a place with cobwebs, cockroaches, broken windows, and that's where you're supposed to live, like a pig. It's demeaning, who does that. My sister got sent to pig's birthing once. I remember her telling me about that with the broken windows. I think it was in the main building in Los Angeles there. Great. Now Lisa Kelson wants ice cream. So let's take a look. Hold on a second. Let's take a look at a little more of this.
Yeah.
Curious. Asking for a
Right. If
friend.
we're talking pre-Dave Miscavige, there's a lot of shady shit that went on.
Just curious.
Yeah. So here's an interesting, not really a segue, but Miscavige loves the real estates people in the.
And that was a great part of the conversation because that is an interesting point. David Miscavige has always kind of lobbed on to individuals who were in the real estate game. So definitely check that out. The other thing that was my takeaway from this blog article, which is where I think maybe Tom DeVocht and others could maybe take this to heart, and that because so many of us have had a different experience and there is a lot of pain there, that we can sometimes delivering a message, you can deliver that message a little, in a way that maybe has a little more empathy or acknowledgement. He doesn't have to, but I'm saying that I think, because I look at this and go, okay, what would have made that message less triggering for some? And I think that acknowledgement of that, hey, this was my experience. And I know that there's people who were really harmed by the practice of Scientology and individuals within Scientology. And, acknowledge that pain and that struggle, because many of those people are still struggling today to show up in the world, to hold jobs, to move on with their lives. And for many of them, when you hear something like that of, well, we can still save Scientology, yeah, it's going to create a very big reaction. So maybe, if there is a bit more of an understanding, acknowledgement, and empathy for that, I think that message can be delivered better. Because at the end of the day, I think many, even Liz and Aaron, I think, would agree that because we've had that different experience, we go about it differently. But while we're doing that, it's very messy. And I love that Liz Gale calls herself a third generation, messy former Scientologist. And that's very accurate. When you grew up in a cult or you grew up in a high control group, right? It's messy. It's very messy. And that mess doesn't just get left in the past. Marilyn says, I just woke up, long night. I know. That mess doesn't get left in the past, and that can be stirred up. So I also think we can come to the table and have these conversations and hold space for those who are still very much have that pain that was caused by Scientology. Even if you don't agree, if Tom DeVocht and people who have more his point of view, I find it hard. I also don't think it was one article based on all the things that Tom DeVak has written about before. I don't believe that he feels that David Miscavige is literally like the only person responsible. He's saying, this is my takeaway, that's who he is going to target. And if he has the receipts and the evidence to do it, bring it on and do it. Let's do it. Let's see it. Meanwhile, I'm still going to be talking about Scientology. I'm going to still throw shade about Scientology. I'm going to still be, all of the things. And David Miscavige do. I have a little David Miscavige doll. You guys know this. So I think there are different ways to go at it, and they can all exist. I think where we're going to succeed is allowing each other the grace to sometimes be messy, and also to have the point of view, to hear and acknowledge that pain. After leaving Scientology, it took me years to fully understand that. And I don't do it perfectly, but I know that when somebody is suffering, just hearing them is such a great start. Because so many of the individuals, especially growing up in Scientology, right? When you grow up in it, the experience is very different than if you joined in your 30s. It still can be very traumatic and completely jack up your life, but it's different. There's no before Scientology for individuals who grew up in Scientology. I was 5 when my mom got into Scientology. And honestly, I credit a lot of, and I don't recall if it was Liz or who was saying that somebody pointed out those formative years, which is, I think, it was up to 8 years old, I think, where you really start to form your personality. Well, my first 5 years, I was still with my family without Scientology, not in the best situation, honestly, my parents weren't stable. My dad struggled with addiction. My mom she had gotten pregnant while she was in high school with me, and they had a shotgun wedding, the whole thing. So I want to take a look at too. Then at some point in this video, Jenna Miscavige joined as well, and it was wonderful. Liz Gale says, "I came in hot. I was processing, but thanks for the support and grace. You're a good girl." I would love. I know we'll have more conversations about this. You brought up some good points, and that was the emotion. And Liz, you were hilarious. I laughed so hard at some point. You guys, I'm going to link it below. You got to go see this video on Coffee, Cult, and Crafts. All right, so let's take a look now. I'm going to show you another clip here from that video last night.
We have to pretend this. And yes, shut the front door.
I'm gonna cry.
I'm gonna go save Liz. Liz is out of control. I'm gonna save her. I got her. Got you.
No, we were in Aaron's chat earlier today, and we were texting each other while we were there. So now we're for real together.
Good. I'm glad. Hi.
Welcome. Yeah, we'll just let it rip. This is After Dark, Coffee, Cult, and Crafts.
I'm ashamed of my behavior. Take it away, Jenna.
No, I mean, Tom DeVocht was my guardian from when I was 12 years old in Clearwater, Florida, until I was 16 years old.
This
And-
got real.
Yeah, so like, I don't hate Tom. I know that he was a kid who grew up in Scientology. And I know that, I don't want to say that it excuses some of his point of view, but it is part of it. But also, at some point, like, he's an adult and he's sitting there watching while like a security guard and 3 grown women are holding me down, trying to stop me from calling my parents as my guardian. It's like David Miscavige wasn't there to watch that. He wasn't issuing orders at that time.
Right.
If
Can't
you
blame it on
become,
him. Mhm.
yeah, if you become a senior executive in Scientology, it's because of your ability to take initiative. It's because of your ability to be creative in coming up with ways that forward command intention.
And Jenna, again, she made a really good point, and she shared some of her personal experience with Tom DeVocht, witnessing some of this abuse happening to Jenna while he was her guardian. And like I said, it's really messy, and there's a lot of processing going on, and I appreciate all of it, even the rawness of a lot of it, the humor with it. I also think, like I said, I think that, and Aaron, I don't know if it was this video or an earlier video that he did where he talked about the generational difference. And I've talked with Liz and Jenna and multiple people, friends of mine, former Scientologists, about this, that there's different generations in anything, but in Scientology. And you have people who get in as adults, and people who grow up in Scientology and go into the Sea Org. And it's like the cycle, the cycle just repeats unless you break that cycle and you leave. And for as many different reasons that people get into Scientology or join the Sea organization, many have different reasons for leaving. We all have a different breaking point. That's why, I mean, look at me. I was in Scientology for 35 years with 3 generations of my family, 4 if you count grandpa dad, but I start with my mom. And when I left with a big chunk of those 3 generations of my family, my immediate family. And it took 2 years. It wasn't without a lot of hard work, and it was barely the beginning of our healing. At that point, we were still surviving. We were trying to break free from Scientology. We hadn't even started the healing yet. We had to get safe first. We had to leave the organization. I had to get my daughter out of there, my mom. And my husband at the time, my mom's husband at the time. I mean, we're talking about a good amount of people. And then there were also families locally who found out we were leaving. There were 2 specific families who ended up leaving as well because they had their own experience and their own issues within Scientology. Now, does that mean that in my experience, the vast majority of my experience in Scientology, I would chalk up to a negative experience. But there were things within it where I understand what Tom DeVocht is saying. When you're working on a team with people on a job and you're focused on it and you're really gelled as a team, which was not everyone's experience in the Sea Org, you get close and you care about those people and you believe that you're actually clearing the planet. You believe that you're making a difference, that you're going to make the world a better place, and you're working at that together. I would imagine it's similar to, maybe that's similar to, I don't know what would be similar outside of Scientology. Very lightly, college is nothing like it because there's study, but it still sounds like there's a lot of fun there and freedom that doesn't exist in Scientology and the Sea Organization. But that bond that you have. And not everybody had that either. Some people were very isolated and alone and didn't have people. Now, that doesn't mean there wasn't snitch culture. But I was in the estates organization and the Sea Organization, one of, if not the only person to join the Sea Organization at the lowest level possible. Most people go in like you get recruited by Golden Arrow Productions or other Sea Organization entities. But I was like, no, I want in at the bottom level. I joined the organization where everyone who gets busted and in trouble gets sent to. And in part because I understood Scientology enough to know that I wanted to keep my head down and not end up on the rehabilitation project force. But that's where my mom was at the time in Los Angeles. My sister was in the Sea Organization. So that was my path. Let's take a look. We're going to watch a little bit more of this here.
So not every little thing that happened is in order by David Miscavige. And you know what? I've done bad things while I was in Scientology too, but I'm not sitting there saying that it's all just one person or even saying that it's not Scientology. Because Scientology itself is that's what allows all the kids to that's the part of it that allows them to tell people that kids are just adults in small bodies. That's the part of it that allowed us to be educated in the way that we were. And so some of the things I feel like with these ex-executives who are in Scientology is that it's almost like the equivalent of having peaked in high school. They were worshipped while they were there.
Oh my
they were
God,
treated,
yes.
Yeah, they were treated like gods. They had their laundry done for them.
Like the 30-year-old guy that still wears his varsity football jacket.
And again, a different experience. If you were an international executive, you were at the international base, you were in the Commodore's Messenger Org, you had your laundry done from you. There were other perks. So it was a different experience. It wasn't without necessarily any trauma. But again, I want to go back to, we each have had a different experience. And if one person is sharing about their experience and their opinion about Scientology, it does not necessarily negate or make less of or say all the other experiences are wrong or don't exist. Now, if they come right out and say, everybody else is lying, this is really what happened, this is the truth, nobody else, everybody telling their story is full of it, that didn't happen. But that's not what I'm hearing with this blog post. I'm hearing one man's opinion, one man's point of view, and the direction that one man is taking, along with other people, it sounds like. And I'm like, go after David Miscavige. It's great. If you got stuff that can prove the illegality of all of the financial crimes that were being committed and probably allegedly still being committed in Scientology, that's fantastic. Move forward with it. I think we also need to remember, that does not mean that going in other directions and still exposing Scientology crimes, all of the other ways that people are in this universe of Scientology aren't still valid. But through the process, and thank you, Arkansas Flamingo, for the reminder. I know it's there might be a lot of feelings on this topic, and especially when it comes to creators that you like and support versus creators you might not like and support. And you can have different opinions. We just in the chat like to keep it aloha, keep it away from hate. You cannot like somebody. You cannot follow people, but that's how you show your support for people, right? You're either supporting their channel or you're not on it. Now, let's see. There's one more clip here. Let's see. Let's take a look at this.
Yeah, at the very least.
Now, what I was asking, like, do you think Tom has it in him? Like, well, Liz says yes. Aaron's just like, yeah, he's a nice guy.
Tom. I will fight you. I will gladly fight
Wait, you don't think he has this big plan to take over Scientology and bring
Are
it back
you
to the good
kidding
old
me?
days?
Listen, he does have a plan to take over Scientology, but you don't understand. This is life or fucking death. I will redhead his ass into oblivion. I will kick him out to the curb. It's not happening. It's not happening. And it sounds like
This is where it got really funny. But I get what she's saying, and there's real feelings behind that humor as well. And I so appreciate that. And that's the part where I think, like I said, if whether it's Tom DeVak talking about what he's doing or someone else talking about what they're doing, I think there's two things here at play. I think one, as individuals, whether we're content creators or even those of you who are watching, that we remember that not everything said is about us or needs to be personalized by us. It's just someone with an opinion and saying, I'm going to go do this. It doesn't necessarily invalidate what anybody else is doing. Sometimes it does, and that might be their intention. And even if it is, okay, keep doing what you want to do, what you feel called to do, what you have the bandwidth to do without it interfering. And this is my opinion. I don't think exposing Scientology should be a priority over your well-being, your mental health, your happiness. And if it brings you happiness and joy, like it does me, then do it. Then do it. But find that balance as well. And as we're going through it, the other thing is, I think as long as we continue to try to have some grace for each other when things do get messy and there are emotions, right? Because those were definitely some reactions to what Tom DeVocht said. What was his intention? Only he knows that. I know I read it though, and I did not take it the same way, which is why I wanted to offer an alternative perspective and something else to look at. Doesn't mean that I have it right either. This is just my opinion. And since I have a YouTube channel, I'm going to share it. But I really enjoyed this conversation and the perspective that was shared and the stories that were shared. And honestly, I think the biggest thing I enjoyed on that video was seeing them have a good time. Seeing them have a good time. There was some good laughter there. And, you know, it was a holiday weekend. Our question of the day was, what did you do on Memorial Day? And I'm going to go back and I'm going to read your comments about that. But let's look at what you're saying here. Let's see. The Boobologist.
Aloha.
Thank you for being a member for 15 months. There's different levels of wanting good in Scientology. In the cult of Scientology, the Sea Org members have the greatest desire for good, but to me, the wealthy public Scientologists seem intent on reaping supposed rewards of cult of Scientology for themselves. That is very insightful, and I would agree with you, Boobologist, that excuse me, I need some tea. I would agree with that there are a lot of more wealthier celebrity Scientologists who are having a different experience in Scientology because they're getting their butts kissed and they're being flown, like given all this help. It's a different experience. And yes, they get more out of it. There's more of that benefit. The more that Scientology thinks you can do for it, the more support that you're going to get, the more that you're going to get away with, even as an individual. Let's see. Liz Gale, I wonder if Tom is raising his daughter as a Scientologist. No idea. That's a good question. I would be curious about that as well. Chuck Ross says, if Scientology goes on and Miscavige grows old, the dynamics being what they are, somebody equally ruthless will be the next leader. It does not attract nice people. At the leadership, I would absolutely agree with that. I've also seen nice people turned into horrible people. And I've seen some nice people turned into horrible people who kind of like healed from that and got themselves, got back to more who they are. And let's admit it, even unless, I don't know who walks around being the best version of themselves 24/7. We're all going to crap the bed at some point and say or do things that are not our best selves. But instead of trying to play some form of gotcha when someone shows up that way, when it's coming from a place of pain, maybe we can have more understanding for that, but also, have more grace for different viewpoints and different ways of going at, dealing with Scientology. Old Frizz says, child purif auditing TRs, that's absolutely unacceptable. The message doesn't get through to parents. We've seen pics of kids with certificates. Very true. When you're in Scientology, whether you're a parent, as a parent, you're not putting your kids onto Scientology services because your intention is to harm them. You falsely believe that it is doing good for your child, that your child is an immortal being. And if Scientology succeeds, there's an opportunity for this child or loved one to be spiritually free. I liken it to kind of how Christians believe in heaven. And if you do certain things and you live your life a certain way, that you will have access to heaven, right? It helps to curb some bad behavior that way. There are similarities in that way within Scientology. Let's grab, let's see here. Marilyn says, Tom left a really nice comment in Aaron's chat. I think that clarified that he wasn't attacking anyone. I still don't agree with him about Scientology, but I think he has good intentions. And I agree with that, Marilyn. I do. That is what I believe. Based on, I don't know him. I'm not sure. I might have met him a really long time ago. I think I might have, after leaving Scientology. But nothing that I've read over the years would lead me where I would have that opinion that, he didn't mean well with this. I think that we're just imperfect people. We're not going to do everything how everyone is going to want us to do it. We're not going to fit into a box that everyone thinks that we should fit into. It's going to be different. We're going to heal in different ways, and we're going to heal at different speeds. And yes, Amber says, I'm definitely very messy. Sometimes I think, what's wrong with me? I like the messy for that. Good to see you, Amber. Asen says, even if he didn't mean it as offensive and demeaning as it sounded to many, his approach is still wrong. Take down Scientology and Miscavige goes down with it. Why try to keep Scientology? I don't fully understand the keeping Scientology part. And so I don't work towards keeping Scientology. Like I said, I've shared my point of view is it's toxic poison from day one. And so I don't understand that. That's not within my reality of, I don't understand it. But because I don't understand it, doesn't mean that he can't do that, right? Even if that's what he's trying to do along with others is to save Scientology, take it away from Miscavige and run it differently. Okay. Not my choice. I don't particularly want to see that, but it's also outside of my control. We're all individuals doing our own thing and living our own lives and working through this crazy cult stuff as best as we can, all in different ways. Some people are here on YouTube. Some people create content elsewhere. Some contribute in a million different ways, and it's all fabulous. And I want to stress again, for us, like what Tom was saying, everybody coming together in this one direction, is what's needed. I don't think so. I think this is my point of view on it when it comes to this, is that however it works for you as an individual within your boundaries, within your life, do that to the level that you can or desire to, where it doesn't interfere with your life today. As much Scientology content as I create, and since I came on YouTube in December of 23, I'm well over 6 million cumulative views, which in the grand scheme of YouTube is still, I have a small channel in the grand scheme of things, but it's a dent, right? It's a pebble. And if many of us are doing that, it's getting out there. There are so many people now, never in Scientology, but all in on ending this cult, who are also bringing to the table how they want to help. And I would ask them, and I would say, thank you for doing what you're doing and continue to do that. But at the same time, for those who want to criticize, whether it's former Scientologists or other people never in Scientology, for how they're going about it, I think that we can stop with, because that doesn't help anything. Good for you. And if you feel you're not getting enough validation for what you're doing, maybe take a step back and actually reflect and ask yourself, why am I offended by not getting validation or the attention I feel I deserve? Why do you feel you deserve it? Why does, and that goes for any of us. If I think there's a lot of self-reflection that can go into that, because how does that help? It doesn't bring people together. If our commonality altogether is we want to end Scientology, and if some people want to take Scientology and do something else with it, well, I'm gonna be keeping an eye on you. If you're not doing the abusive practices, I don't understand why you'd want to do that. But it's also not my responsibility to go after people and stop them from a way that they think will make a difference, going the legal route. If you want to target David Miscavige, target David Miscavige. I did not read or hear in that means everybody, other people should stop doing what they're doing. But I understand the pushback on it, and I completely understand why it's triggering. And that's where I think the communication, we can all learn how to maybe communicate in a way that we can just give each other a bit more grace across the board that way. And I got a feeling that, I think Tom DeVak would be open to that. I think it's learning how to communicate with each other, but it's also remembering that because someone says something, it doesn't mean that it invalidates or has to invalidate what you are doing or how you are doing it. If our commonality is to end the abusive practices of Scientology, and the majority of us want to see Scientology end, that's our commonality. How you go about that is up to you. But when you are criticizing how someone else is lending their shoulder to the wheel, and whether they're and judging that they're not doing enough, why do you get to judge that? Who are you to judge that? That's not for me to judge. It's not for any of us to judge. We have to decide as individuals how we want to do that. And so thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Marilyn says, right, Natalie, motives matter. Style Audit 1A said, thanks, Natalie. The irony of Father's Day protests is epic and the result of more than 1 year of government auditing. Absolutely. Audit LA has, and I think many of you know this, has been working really hard on trying to get that permit, on pushing back on their ADA violations, and why Scientology doesn't have to follow the same rules of everybody else there in Los Angeles. So I think that's going to be a lot of fun, and I hope people show up to that on Father's Day. It sounds like it starts at 11:30, and if you go to Audit LA's channel, you can learn a lot more about that. Liz Gale says, I don't really want to fight anyone, LOL, but I do have some big feelings and I own them. Yeah, you absolutely do. And Liz, those feelings and you sharing it opens up the conversation. And this is the beautiful thing. We can talk about it. We can have conversations about it, but it doesn't have to mean crapping on anybody. We can disagree. Like I said, I don't understand why anyone would want to save Scientology, but okay. But you know what I agree with? Going after David Miscavige for what he's done, for those crimes. But I also plan on going after Scientology itself. I think L. Ron Hubbard was a criminal, a charlatan, and the source of all of this damage. But that's my point of view. Other people might want to continue with Scientology. Like I said, I don't get it. I don't get it. Let's see. Liz says, Tom said twice in his blog, we were Scientology, and that means he was an abuser. And if those are his glory days, I have zero respect for that. Sorry, guys. That's just me and my line in the sand. I totally get it. I absolutely get what you're saying. And that is totally cool. And this is what I'm saying. It's no one wants to take, well, not no one, but I'm sure there are people who would love to take those, like, make it like you shouldn't feel that way. That's your feelings are your feelings, and they're valid. And what that stirs up is valid. And it opens up conversation. How can we communicate with a generational gap sometimes? Let's even from that point of view, when it comes to former Scientologists, we've had different experiences, some more painful for others. There are people who have left Scientology that were like, yeah, it wasn't that bad. They weren't, they also they didn't have many of the experiences that go along with the Sea Org or being on staff and other things. But for them, that was their experience. So who are we to argue that? It's pointless when our common denominator is ending the abusive practices in Scientology. So I think that anytime if somebody wants to make a comment, put out a video, if you want to contribute, in my opinion, whatever you're doing to expose Scientology and cults, run things through that filter. Would me criticizing someone who is also doing something to end Scientology, does me criticizing how they do it move the needle forward? It doesn't. It might feel good in the moment because we're human, and those are, those emotions can be very strong. But I really think we can talk about these things, without it becoming a full-blown battle. And I appreciated the conversation that happened last night in that video, because there were different points of views being brought to the table and discussed and talked about. And I got a lot out of it. I found it really inspiring. Jojo, did you do any independent Scientology when you left? So when I left, my husband at the time was not ready to leave Scientology. He wanted to do independent Scientology. I did not. But at the time, I'm like, okay, however you feel comfortable with sharing that we've left Scientology, right? Because that was his step out. And because we were still a team back then, it was like, okay, now I know in my heart and mind, I want nothing to do with Scientology ever again in terms of practicing Scientology. But it was different for him. And eventually then for him, he was like, yeah, no, it's a cult. So I never actually did any independent Scientology. I never did any more courses or auditing and any of that. And I never will again. George Massey says, totally vibing with Natalie. Scientology is not redeemable. The greatest crime for me is child abuse, adults in little bodies, which embedded in the concept of the Thetan, the core of Scientology. And that's why I don't understand how someone can take Scientology and think it's going to be different. Now, there are certain individuals who made it worse, but how's it going to be different? Auditing Scientology, Kansas City. Hey, Mike says, seems to me that child abuse is baked into the tech. Convince me that independent Scientology doesn't abuse kids. Well, and that is the interesting thing. It's all people have different points of views on that. I didn't recognize a lot of things that were abuse or even human trafficking in Scientology till way after I left. Some of it only since I've been here on YouTube, because I never looked back and reframed it in the context of that this was actually human trafficking, that it was child trafficking when my sister at 14 was taken from Hawaii and sent to the Sea Organization with no guardian, a supposed guardian who she never saw. It was pretty much on her own, like many. You have children who grew up in the Sea Org, like Jenna Miscavige, who never had her parents for any period of time. Matt Elliott, SPDV Canada, says little Davy Miscavige is afraid of child body thetans because he believes they are the thetans of the people he screwed over and think they may come after him. That actually kind of makes sense. I think I can kind of see that. I actually could. Maybe it's Mike Sandoval, never good for anyone. Yeah, I agree. And the cool thing is we're going to keep talking about it. We're going to keep having conversations about it. We're going to keep trying to understand and hold space for each other when those emotions get messy. And that is okay, because we're not playing a game of gotcha here. We're playing a game of, at least me in this community, from my point of view. And I think my audience, I can speak for you and you can tell me if I'm wrong, are here to help heal and continue to expose Scientology and thereby other cults and high control groups. And that's kind of the yardstick of how I decide what I talk about on my channel, the direction that I want to take it. And I so appreciate each person who's doing what they're doing to help move that needle forward of exposing Scientology and getting the word out, from liking and watching a video all the way up, whether you're doing protesting videos, calling into city councils, all of it. And just because to all of that, like there's so much content on YouTube, there's so much content outside of YouTube about Scientology. And there's so much of it that not everything can be covered. So as somebody with a YouTube channel, I take a look at what does my audience want to hear? And I base that a lot on what I hear from my audience, what I'm sent. Have you seen this? There are things that stand out the most. Whereas one person might say something, but then if 50 are talking about this, that's the thing I'm going to talk about and cover. Because as a YouTube creator, to grow my channel, I need to provide the content that my audience is looking for. Once in a while, I'll do something that I'm just doing because I actually find it super interesting and I'm not sure that they will. And that's totally cool too. As a content creator, you make those decisions. Amy says, I thoroughly enjoyed seeing Aaron's shocked face too. Yeah. And, I'm going to link below his video as well. Go check them both out. Check out Aaron's video about this and then Coffee Cult and Crafts as well. Hey, Robin Miners, good to see you. Marilyn says, Liz Gale, I love your raw honesty. I think that's why we're such good friends. And yeah, I appreciate that about Liz as well. Let's see. I'm super behind in the chat here. I'm actually going to have to go and read most of this afterwards and get caught up. But what I would love for you to do is hit that like and subscribe, and let's keep talking about this. Tell me your thoughts if you're on the replay in the comments. Did you watch the video? If not, go check it out. And again, I just encourage everybody to bring as much aloha to this community as possible, because there's way more healing that needs to occur. And I think we can do it some less criticizing what other people are doing and maybe finding out how we can better support each other moving forward, just across the board, because I would love to see more conversations like this that happened last night in a way that, raises questions, answers some of them, but really talks about how an individual feels or reacts to something like Tom DeVocht's post. And I would love to hear from Tom DeVocht as well and get his thoughts on it. And I think that that would be absolutely amazing. And I think that these different gaps, that there can be bridges across the board for that. And it starts with assuming that there's, not real harmful intent there. It doesn't matter to you, not to me, says, we need to send Liz more wine. Yeah, it sounds like she likes Chardonnay. All right, everybody. I hope you get out and you have an amazing cult-free day.